we listened to what Melissa shared earlier, it's really not a viable option not to change. So will we is really is not even an option.
Yeah.
But I think as we just heard from what Theodosia shared, that we already are changing. So really, and it's not only good for the environment, it's actually economically advantageous. So the real question is not just will we, but will we change far enough, fast enough? And so that's what I want to spend a few minutes on. And a lot in the news, obviously, back in 2015 with the Paris Agreement, with every nation in the world signing on, and then news again in 2017 when the U.S., when President Trump announced the U.S. would back out of that agreement or would withdraw. But it's important to understand that that can't actually take place until, ironically, the day after the 2020 election. And I don't want to get off on that tangent, except to say that for the purposes of this, what we want to look at is not just that picture, but what are we doing in the U.S. specifically? And so if we look at this slide here, originally it was California, New York, and Washington as founding members of the United States Climate Alliance. But if you look at the 24 states that have signed on, that's more than half of our population in these states. And so Theodosia mentioned some of the policy changes in California, but this kind of collaboration at a national level is very important. But if we look even at our within our states and within our cities, all these cities have committed to 100% renewable electricity. They'll all set various timelines for when that will take place. And if you look even further into that, there are a handful that have already met that goal. So they're generating 100% of their electricity today in these cities from renewable sources. So taking it from the state down to the cities, and in Georgia, we've got Atlanta, Athens, and Savannah who've said they will get there by 2025, and Augusta and Clarkson by 2050. So in Georgia, we saw the data that Theodosia shared, but it's very feasible, it's very economically advantageous, and cities are doing that. And in our own city of Covington, Georgia, back in April, as part of the celebration for Earth Day, which was the 50th anniversary, we worked with the mayor and council and city staff to adopt a resolution in the city that committed to making decisions that looked not just at economic considerations, but social and environmental implications, to actively look at trade-offs when those things came into conflict, and make good decisions that have a long-term balance, that take care of future generations, to reduce the city's carbon footprint, and to promote dialogue with experts, with citizens, with stakeholders in the community. So we were very excited about that. And at the same time, we also worked with Sustainable Newton, sponsored a project with the Sellers School of Business at Georgia Tech, their Sustainable Business Practicum. We had a group of graduate students who worked with us late last year and the first part of this year to do a study for the city of Covington, looking at the city's fleet of vehicles, and help them assess ways that they could use both the compressed natural gas facility that the city already has and electric vehicles, charging stations and electric vehicles, to reduce the city's carbon footprint or emissions from those vehicles. And the students came back with a very detailed and very actionable plan that would get 40% reduction over 2 phases. And also at the same time showed the city how much money we could save by doing that. So, and then since then, we've actually gone back and put in another proposal to the students that was accepted for their fall semester, a different group of students. And now they're working with the city on detailed strategies for implementing and promoting electric vehicle adoption in the city. So the things that Theodosia shared, the city of Covington is actually working on those, and we're getting good technical expertise through the folks at Georgia Tech. Meanwhile, in the city of Oxford, when we were doing our Solarize Newton Morgan campaign that Theodosia referenced earlier, Oxford was very supportive in eliminating a fee that was making it disadvantageous for some people to install solar. Since then, this year, the City Council established a Sustainable Oxford Committee in the City of Oxford, a group that is regularly looking at long-term strategies for conservation, for carbon reduction and all of that. And then the mayor and council members from Oxford participated with us in a virtual town hall that you can find on our website and our YouTube channel. That was very informative and showed a really good view of the long-term thinking we've got with the leadership there. Okay, so if we go on, so that's the public sector, but meanwhile in the private sector, every day, if you follow the news at all, you see companies that have made commitments around sustainability, commitments around their carbon reduction, and actually these 240 companies have all committed to, these 240 companies that we may or may not see on the screen have all committed to 100% renewable energy as well. So our local governments, our businesses, everybody embracing the idea of renewable energy. But the point of this slide and going on to the next one is that these companies are partly incented to do this because the public is demanding that they do that, and especially younger citizens. Although if you look at these pictures, I was in Walla Walla, Washington last September for when the student march was taking place there, and it was really encouraging because what was happening was all the older folks like myself were at intersections getting the younger people safely through. But I mean, this went on like this for probably 20 or 30 minutes of people marching by. So we're changing because the people who are going to inherit this world from us are saying we have to change, and I think that's what's going to drive this forward. So if we go on, this study is done every year by Yale University and the folks at George Mason University, and they do a series of questions that gauge public opinion towards climate, everything from do you believe it's changing, do you believe humans are causing it, does it worry you, do you want to do this, and this about it. But it's a great benchmark to see how we're progressing in terms of our attitudes. And this was back in April of this year, and the left means you want to do something, the right means you're not convinced. And if you look at it, a quarter of the people in America right now are alarmed. And if they watch what Melissa took us through, they ought to be alarmed. But if you look at, just alarmed, concerned, and cautious and add up, that's 3/4 of the public saying, I'm worried. And so, I think too often, I know I do, we put an event on like this, we put a Facebook post out there, and I get negative, snide comments from people, and it's real easy to get distracted by that. But the reality is 3/4 of us are ready to do something.
Yeah.
And the other quarter, the disengaged aren't a problem. They just need to be brought along. Doubtful can be persuaded, but we need to focus on the 3/4 of us that are ready to do something. So this is something we can feel really good about. If we go on, I'm fond of the saying, if those that don't say it can't be done should get out of the way of those that are doing it. And so one more, Melissa. These are all films or series of films that we featured at Sustainable Newton 2040. We had a screening and a panel discussion, Story of Plastic, where actually you can sign up now and view that film through us. And we're going to have a panel discussion on Thursday of this week. Kiss the Ground's a film that is out now on Netflix. It talks about all the regenerative agriculture that Theodosia mentioned, and we haven't scheduled that yet, but we're going to have a panel discussion around that as well. And then just yesterday, I had a session you can find on our website and our YouTube channel with Erica Gilsdorf, who's a filmmaker out of Duluth, Minnesota. And I met her earlier this year through the Climate Reality blog, and she's been doing a series of stories, positive stories about people taking action, like we try to do here in our area. And actually, she's now embarking on a trip across the northern plains to the West Coast, down the coast, and then back across the country. And she's going to end up here next spring. When she and I talked, she wasn't sure if she'd do that or not. And I guess I was the crazy one that persuaded her she should do it. So, but she's going to be taking these little stories along the way of people, just ordinary people like us, the folks on the Zoom here, folks watching this on Facebook, who said, I got to do something. That's how Sustainable Newton got founded in the first place. So these are all groups. They're great stories.
Maurice.
Yeah.
I was going to mention that, we look at that and the story of plastic, we think about plastic pollution and we worry about the sea turtles with the plastic straws in their nose and the bag trees that we see in Newton County are flying as you're riding along. But, you think about the petroleum industry and how big that is in the plastic industry. And so again, thinking about moving away from some of these mining things and the offshore drilling that we're worried about for Georgia and our beaches. And so it's all related, to this bigger issue of climate change.
Yep. So, those films are not just films. They're nonprofit groups working on solving this problem from different angles. Another group that I'm very encouraged by, a movement that I like to follow. They do a lot of really good content, which is featured here on their YouTube channel. But World War Zero is an organization originally founded by John Kerry, former Secretary of State John Kerry, and a number of other prominent folks in the country. And actually, one of his primary partners right now is John Kasich, the Republican, former Republican governor of Ohio, who ran for president in 2016. And so back to that, point earlier about, the Paris Accord, and somehow this sometimes becomes partisan. This is a group that's very bipartisan, nonpartisan. They do a great job of bringing in all kind of different perspectives and talk about, the Green New Deal versus a market-based, different kinds of. So it's really informative, and they're really driving a lot of energy towards finding, and young people, as you can see in some of these. I would encourage you to go and find some of their videos and watch them. Another group that is national, but there's a Georgia chapter, and that is the Citizens Climate Lobby. And again, they're focused on, Theodosia gave us a good hint there about how big a deal policy is in terms of how successful we can be with renewable energy and other technologies. So the Citizens Climate Lobby actually, takes you through the process of learning how to be a more effective advocate, a more effective lobbyist with your local officials, your state officials, your federal officials. And so it's another one that, you can sign up, join. They have education you can go to, and then they have monthly sessions that are really good. So that's another important angle, also very bipartisan. And then another, Theodosia mentioned earlier the idea of drawdown. And so Project Drawdown, the book's over on my shelf. I meant to get it so I could hold it up right now, but it's the important point that, to solve this problem, we can't just stop putting carbon in the atmosphere. We've got all this carbon we've already put there. That's what Melissa showed us, what's happening today. That's not going to change until we draw that down. And so Project Drawdown is more the scientific side of what these other groups that I just talked about are focused on, the political and societal side, which is, hey, if we're going to do something, what gives us the most bang for our buck? And so they've looked at all these solutions. They've modeled the impact under different scenarios, and they maintain a very dynamic list of what are the top solutions to climate change. And so they'll give you some really good idea when we say things like eat less meat, or we say, grow food more sustainably, or we say, change to renewable energy sources. They'll show you in hard figures what that would do for our country and the world if we do that. And then at a level down from that, something very exciting that's happening this week, actually next Saturday, is the official launch of the Drawdown Georgia Project. So the Georgia Climate Project is originally was a couple of the large educational institutions in Georgia, Emory and Georgia Tech. They've grown to where almost all of our higher education institutions are part of the project, and they're looking at all of the things that we can do for climate change in Georgia. And the Ray C. Anderson Foundation is the nonprofit arm of this that supports a lot of the work that we talked about that we're doing with the Georgia Tech folks that support the Georgia Climate Project. So collectively, they're bringing out Drawdown Georgia. And in these columns here, the electricity, food systems, transportation, forestry, buildings, and materials, in the coming week and the week that follows that, they're going to be laying out which of these drawdown strategies make the biggest difference here in the Southeast, here in Georgia. So it's hugely important, and it's something, if you go out there now to their website, and I'll give you a link at the end, you can sign up and go to virtual events and get more information on these things. So drawdown in Georgia is a very big deal. Today, I don't know if anybody else watched it. I spent a little time, but TED, the TED project that puts these great videos out, they've been going at it since 11 a.m. today. Today is their global launch of their year-long project focused on climate change. So a lot of cross-pollination. I saw Al Gore over there, and there'll be folks from that coming to Al's event here today and tomorrow. But there's a lot going on this weekend that is really focused on uniting the world to do something about this. So go check that out as well. On our website, we have links to all these things I've talked about, some I haven't talked about. So we'll keep going, and at the end, I'll tell you how you can find that. On our calendar, please stay in the loop about the things we've got going on. I mentioned the Story of Plastic film, which we're having right now. You can stream it for free virtually. The way you do that is you sign up on our website or at our Facebook page for the panel discussion this coming Thursday. And then you'll get a link in an email that lets you stream the film. I mentioned the discussion with Erica yesterday, this event. So we're always trying to keep our stuff out there, but we also post events that other organizations like Georgia Drawdown and like Climate Georgia are doing. Okay, go on. We have a very robust YouTube channel. All these events like this, if you happen to miss one or want to go back and say, wait a minute, what did she say, when they're all recorded and put on our YouTube channel, as well as our website. And so, will we change? I am, we are, and we is every one of us. So, it's your voice, it's your vote, which is now. And, the choices that we make, the priorities that we set. So, the truth is what we speak loudly enough about. So this is very much all of us in it together. But, part of why we have these conversations is it depends on us. And we started Sustainable Newton 2.5 years ago because individually we just were frustrated and said, I don't know if I can change it all, but by golly, I can change something. And so that's what we do, and that's what we're happy to have you helping us do. So I think one more. So one thing, please do, and when we're done, there should be, if you're watching on Zoom, there'll be a browser window left up that has links to all the things I just talked about, including this. If you're watching on YouTube Live, I'll post that in a little bit. But please go to the 24hoursofreality.org site. If you do that and log that you attended this presentation, they will, if arranged through a wonderful organization called One Tree Planted, which was one of those boxes on our website I showed you. They'll plant a tree in your name somewhere in the world that badly needs it. They're doing a lot of work right now in California, which obviously is in serious need of trees with all the fires that we've suffered there. But, do that. Obviously vote, and however you vote, make sure that the candidates that you support know that this matters to you, and get your friends involved. Stay involved with the Climate Reality Project, but look for one of those other groups I talked about earlier and figure out where you fit in there, and use those and use us to keep ideas coming for things you can do. So thanks so much, everybody, for being here.